Our Spanish interpreters, can you please come to the front?
Hola a todos, si necesitan interpretación en español, estamos sentados atrás. Gracias.
Thank you. All right, welcome to meeting number 4, SAG members and public. A few housekeeping things. Please make sure you get validated before the end of the meeting. Several of us got blocked from getting out last time, so it was an interesting exercise. So please make sure you get validated. I don't want that to happen to any of you. I do want to introduce someone, Lori Parks Servino. She has recently been hired by the city, us. She will be the Diridon Station Area Civic Engagement Manager. So she is going to be stepping in. You're going to get a lot of emails from her, see a lot less of me. So it'll be a great thing for you all. But seriously, Lori's got a great background, worked beforehand with David Powers and Associates, working on the actual Diridon Station Area Plan, the CEQA document, so a very rich kind of history in the area, as well as a lot of transit and civic engagement experience in other cities around such transit villages and plans as we're speaking of here. So it brings a wealth of knowledge, and thank you for joining us, Lori. So tonight should be really exciting. All of you started sending in your slide decks as early as last week, and just looking at those, it should be a really interesting night. A lot of creativity and passion went into those, so I appreciate that. It's always great for you guys to hear from one another. On to the topic of our most controversial subject so far amongst you guys and myself, which is public comment. We just can't seem to get that right. So I did have conversations with our city attorney. We're in no violations whatsoever thus far. And we do have some flexibility of where I move that up and how I choose to do that as we facilitate this group together. For tonight, several people have asked if they could speak prior to the night ending because there's another event that they would like to do that tonight. So what I'm planning on doing is before we jump into the TED Talks and the presentation, handle a certain amount of that public comment up front. And for those who don't want to speak to the actual presentations, whether it be Google or presentation or any of your TED Talks, those people that did not go before the meeting would be able to speak afterwards during public comment. So just a show of hands from the public, who's interested in speaking before the presentations tonight on public comment? Just raise them high. So if I can ask if maybe some of you can kind of come over there just so Matt can kind of better orchestrate that. So I don't want to, I want to make sure that we get into all the presentations tonight because you guys did spend so much time on that. So Matt will facilitate the public comment for us, but that should allow some of these individuals who have other commitments tonight to be able to speak to the meeting. With that, I know a number of you have been here a lot lately with the solution groups and tonight, and there's a solution group tomorrow night. So thank you for your commitment thus far. It's been a fun, interesting process, kind of diving a little bit deeper, like I think we all wanted to, on some of these issues, and I'm excited when those solution groups start to come back and start talking about some of the solutions to the challenges that we've been talking about. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who is going to walk through the agenda, and then we'll get started with tonight's meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I am here tonight alone. Dave Javid is not able to make it tonight, so I apologize. You have just me this evening. The better facilitator is not here. We have a really packed agenda and a really exciting agenda tonight. There's going to be so many great ideas, and I think the first round of TED Talks that we did generated a lot of really interesting comments and thought. So our agenda tonight is we're going to... I'm sorry.
No, yeah, either back or more
Got it.
forward.
Sorry, right in the way. See, I told you Dave should have been here. So we're going to start tonight. We're going to review the notes from last time really quickly, and then we'll do public comment. I think there's 7 folks. We'll do 2 minutes per person. Moving on then to Google's early design thinking for the Diridon Station area, and Michael Flynn will give that presentation. There'll be some time for Q&A. And then we're going to jump into the TED Talks in 3 different groups. We're going to be strict with the 4 minutes since there are so many folks. tonight, and then after that, we'll go into public comment. We are going to spend very little time at the beginning because we really want to jump into the substance of what we're here for tonight. Just to remind everyone, we have group agreements. We want to make sure that we are all following these agreements and respecting one another, respecting there's different opinions and differences of opinion and different ideas, and to be open-minded to allow all of those different ideas to percolate. Our last SOG meeting was again, I think, a really interesting meeting. We have the notes. Let's see. The notes are on the table here. The meeting minutes from the last time. I think we need a agreement on a motion to approve the minutes. Because I don't think, Lee, we didn't do that. Correct?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, motion passes. So then the meeting focused two parts. First on what's going on at the city for the Diridon Station area, including the BART extension, electrification of Caltrain, high-speed rail, and then the station area design. And there was some really rich discussion afterwards dealing with station design, multimodal transportation, transit-oriented development, and gentrification, and the impacts from examples around Europe. We then had our 5 members of the SOG do their TED Talks. And again, it was really an interesting, a real variety of conversation from issues that are going on now that need to be fixed, all the way to sort of big picture challenges about how we can, how the city can really envision this area and make the Diridon Station area extension of downtown and this place that serves all people of the city. And so, again, rich conversation. There were more detailed notes about all of this. So that's the summary. Again, I'm moving through this quickly. There were some takeaways from, there were opportunities and critical issues and challenges that were identified. And all of these, what we found in this is that there are great ideas and great nuggets that can go into the ideas that get passed on and could be included in the MOU. So part of our job as the city and the consultant team is to take those ideas and begin to organize them, feed them through the solution groups, add ideas from the solution groups, and then come up with a composite list that we can then talk about for all of the topics. Okay, before we move on to the early design thinking, we have we'll do public comment, and the folks who are doing public comment, are they all over here at this point? Okay. Lori, do you want to? Actually, I'll take this. Sure. Okay. First speaker is Salvador Bustamante, followed by Miguel, is that Vasquez? Okay, great. Oh, you stole the mic.
Good evening. My name is Chava Bustamante. I'm with Latinos United for a New America. And I'm here tonight representing the members of LUNA because we're very frustrated with this process, to be honest with you. And the frustration comes because last year the city promised that we were going to be going out to the communities to start talking about this project. And then they came up with this idea of forming this group. And this is the 4th meeting, and my understanding is that there's no plan yet or timeline as to when are we going to go out and do outreach to our communities and talk about what's going to happen with this project. So something needs to happen in this group so you guys can answer those questions and start talking to our communities. Our communities need answers about this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Trujillo Miguel Vasquez. I'm with Grupo Solidaridad and Luna Latinos Unidos por una Mejor América. Representing here our community. we like to know what is, if Google has a plan for integration of our community and how the community is going to be integrated into this Google vision. Please take note of that, because you cannot, I mean, not you, but Google cannot come to our backyard and make a camping there without a deadline of how he's going to stay, how he's going to integrate the community. No, without having answers. We need answers, and the community deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next presenter is Sandy Perry, followed by Daniel Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Sandy Perry. I'm from the Affordable Housing Network of Santa Clara County. I was fortunate enough to go to the Housing Solutions Group, and during the course of the discussion, it became very clear that we need to establish a clear goal in this project of zero displacement. I'm not talking about mitigating displacement. I'm not talking about dealing with displacement. We need to have zero net displacement. In order to do that, the original Diridon plan calls for an affordable housing implementation plan, and we need to have one here. An affordable housing implementation plan requires at least a preliminary estimate to quantify the additional affordable housing demands that the Diridon development will create, broken down by the income categories: extremely low income, very low income, and moderate. We need to plan where and when to build the necessary affordable housing units, both inside and outside the station area, since we've already established that the project is going to impact the entire city. And finally, we need to identify where we're going to get the funds necessary to build them. San Jose's housing crisis is far too severe to proceed without a thoughtful plan to address this project's housing impact. It's not acceptable to say that it's not our problem, and there's too many city leaders that are saying it's not our problem. It's not acceptable to say it's the problem of the North County. If we want to come up with a plan that will hold North County accountable to build the housing units necessary to house the workers at this project, that's okay. But if we don't do that, then we have to take responsibility. When it comes to the housing crisis, hopes and prayers are no more an acceptable solution than they are for addressing gun violence. As the mayor has said, failing to plan means planning to fail.
Thank you. Daniel Gonzalez, followed by Andrew Lee.
Hello, I'm here, I'm a lifelong resident of San Jose, and I am here to call for an end to this committee and an end to this project. I don't recall the city ever engaging the community to even enter these negotiations. It is comical that when it comes to things the community needs, like housing, like space for our unhoused, there are no obstacles, or there are obstacles. There's the NIMBYs, there's the landlords. We can't overcome these community groups. But when it comes to tech corporations, these obstacles do not exist. We enter exclusive negotiating agreements. We sign non-disclosure agreements. It is a farce. And to say that this committee represents the interests of all of San Jose is also a farce. I don't see the east side, the south side, the unhoused represented here. I see a lot of people who might benefit from the completion of this project. So, you know, we've got to talk about public land for public good. The city never engaged the community about that discussion. So yes, we need to end this committee and this project.
Thank you. Andrew Lee's next, followed by Donna Wallach.
Thanks for giving me the time. My name's Andrew. I'm a food service worker. I live in a converted garage, half a converted garage, which consumes about half of my monthly income. And if this tech campus were built and 20,000 highly paid tech workers came here without 20,000 housing units available for them, and that drove up the housing prices, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what my coworkers would do. I don't know what my friends would do. I don't know what my neighbors would do. So I'm just here because I'm scared. And I'm scared because I think history shows us in Mountain View and Palo Alto, in San Francisco and Cupertino, when these campuses come in, working and middle-class folks get forced out. They get forced out of their communities. They get forced out of the Bay Area. Sometimes they get forced out of housing altogether to live under overpasses and bridges. And so we don't know how many people are going to be displaced exactly. But we know if this campus gets built, it'll be some. It won't be none. It won't be everyone. But there will be a number. There'll be hundreds and thousands of people probably who aren't going to be able to live here. And for the members of the advisory group, it seems like there's some number small enough that it would be okay, that people would be okay to endorse this project. If we can keep the displacement down to, I don't know how many families. So I guess that's my question for the people sitting at this table. How many families are we willing to sacrifice for progress and innovation and grants and tax revenue? Is it 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? How many families would be a small enough number that we want to build this project on their backs and on their suffering and potentially on their lives? Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Wallach, followed by Nicole LaMarche.
My name is Donna Wallach. I've been living in San Jose since 1997, renting all the time, and every time I've had to move numerous times because landlords always change their minds. And every time I've had to move, it gets more and more difficult to find another place that I can afford to rent. I ride a bicycle, I do not own a car, so I need to be somewhat close to the downtown area because of my activities. And I am sure that if Google comes to town, it will be impossible for me to find a place to live, not only because of lack of housing, but because I'm positive the rents are going to skyrocket. I am absolutely against Google coming to town. We don't need them here in San Jose. They're going to get all kinds of subsidies and tax breaks, and we, the people, especially those of us who earn little money, are going to be taxed up to more than what we can afford to pay. So Google does not need to be here. Do not tear down housing. Do not tear down privately owned businesses that exist in the area where Google wants to build. Google, stay out of town. Thank you.
Okay. Nicole LaMarche, followed by James Scarpola.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Nicole LaMarche, minister here downtown in the United Church of Christ, right here at 80 South 5th, where Recovery Cafe is. And I live in the east side, and my daughter goes to a public elementary school in Mount Pleasant School District. And I've been here 6 years, and I have real concerns that we're building a tolerance for tent cities because we haven't done enough. Maybe we think that that's normal. And it seems like this project will only make it worse. And so I have great concerns as a leader, a faith leader with people acting in community together, that we're not doing enough to prevent displacement and gentrification. And it seems to me that we import people from other places instead of building it in so people at Mount Pleasant Elementary can have a shot at a job at Google. And so I really want to be here to light a fire under moral imagination. And a lot of you are my friends. And I believe that we want this to benefit the whole city. And I believe that that's possible. And I believe that this is a really important turning point. This is an opportunity to do it different than other cities have done. And I hope that you have, that this design includes empathy and justice as much as aesthetics.
Thank you. James Scarpola, followed by Patricia Vasquez, who's our last speaker, public speaker at this point.
Hello, my name is James Scarpula. I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm here to speak in solidarity with the unhoused people of San Jose. The homeless situation in San Jose is not a crisis, it is a catastrophe. This SAG group does not even take into consideration what we will see if a tech campus such as Google comes to San Jose. It will be exacerbated to a degree that we cannot possibly imagine. Sure, there will be people that will have to move to the Valley, to Tracy, to Gilroy, to be able to continue to live while still working in San Jose, but there will be an even larger population that will have nowhere to go because they cannot afford to physically move themselves. They will be living in the streets, and I don't think that anyone here is an awful enough person to want that for families from the East Side. So I ask you to take into consideration what we already have here in this city and to think to what degree it will get worse. Thank you.
Okay, Patricia Vasquez, and we had one more added, David Grando.
Good evening. My name is Patricia. I've lived in San Jose for more than 30 years, and I have seen my brother, his family, and my mother move away, like 3 hours away from here. And my husband and I have been struggling with our 5 kids to keep them in their neighborhood, their schools, and it's been really hard. Rents are really crazy here, and it just keeps us alive that we want to buy a house here in San Jose, and we have that dream, but it just seems like that dream is going to stay a dream. It just doesn't look reachable at this point. And now that my 5 kids are grown and they're moving out of the house, they're living what we have been struggling with for many years. And we don't know if they are going to move out 3 hours away from here or if we are someday. So it's uncertain to live in San Jose at this point. We don't know what the future will bring. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, David Granado. Did I get it right this time? Okay. I didn't see the A there. I apologize.
So I grew up, lived in the east side San Jose my whole life, and so just listening to most of the people that have spoke already, you know, same type of thing where it's just wondering what's going to be happening. You know, we've already had, this isn't anything new. You know, people have been moving out of the city for a long time, and you guys don't care. You know, and it's been said lots of times that, you know, people are living in their cars, people that are teachers just down the street over at the university are living in their cars, and they're not able to make, you know, ends meet. And yet, instead of us doing anything about it, we're just allowing more corporations, more private-owned land, more, you know, corporate interests to take up the area from the people. And then your only reply to us is the new buses, the new light rail stations, all that stuff. We can live outside the city, and you guys will transport us in. You know, that's the life that you guys paint for us. We might be able to own something outside, but, you know, what type of mentality are we really like, you know, growing up with? What are we doing? You know, none of my family graduated from high school, or barely graduated from high school. 2 of my brothers, they still haven't done it. One of them older, one of them's younger. You know, my mom's been going through like this whole shit, and we have all this, you know, mental health going around with people. When are we ever going to take care of ourselves and the people that have been living here for so long and are just wondering and questioning and just waiting for the next day? You know, y'all planning all this stuff, and we're just waiting to see what's next. So, what's next, y'all?
Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for the comments. Again, we're going to have public comment, again, for those who haven't spoken at the end, after all of the presentations. I am now, Lee, did you want to? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Lee, and we're going to start the presentations and then discussion.
Yeah, so I don't have too much to say other than we're going to jump into Google's presentation, and then we're going to transition into the TED Talks. And as Matt mentioned, you guys are chunked up in 3 panels, so we'll take a quick kind of transition after we're done with this presentation. So there's going to be this presentation, some Q&A by you guys and Joe and Matt, and then we'll transition into the first panel. So with that, I want to introduce you to a familiar face who presented here the other week, Joe Van Bellingham.
You guys need your microphone back, don't you?
Matt's got it. Matt, clicker.
Hello, I'm Joe Van Bellingham with Google's Real Estate Group. In my previous presentation, we outlined our principles of place. Oh, I have to retrain it? Okay. In my previous presentation, we outlined our principles of place and the need for an approach to the creation of place that considers community, nature, innovation, and economics in a balanced way. The creation of place that allows the community and Google to thrive together. And what I outlined is place just isn't about buildings, it's about the urban experiences people crave, the programming of these experiences and the creation of community, such as the provision of affordable housing and job creation programs, and et cetera. Today, Michael Flynn, our urban design lead, is going to share some of his early design thinking focused on the physical and experiential components of place, so not things related to affordable housing or job creation, which are all important, but today is more about sharing some preliminary design, horizontal design concepts that are based upon feedback from the several community walks that we've already undertaken, and also listening to comments from SAG. We want to express how enjoyable and informative these first walks with the neighborhood groups have been. It is clear to us how passionate the individuals we met are about their community, learning how their neighborhoods have changed over the years, what they like, they don't like, what their aspirations are, what their concerns are, and they have for Diridon has really got us thinking.
Go ahead and take a seat. We're going to get started in a minute.
I was fixing it, I'm not very good at it. I'm Maria. Said the former budget director.
All right, folks, we're going to get started. If I can get the public to take a seat, if there is enough seating. So thank you, SAG members, for spending the time with us. Just so everyone else is aware, as facilitator, under the Brown Act, I decided to adjourn us into closed session very quickly, which under the Brown Act, we're allowed, the public is not allowed to interrupt a legislative body in their proceedings. So what we did was we recessed into closed session to have a conversation on how we proceed tonight with the rest of the meeting, given the full agenda. So the SAG members would like to proceed with the Google presentation and however many TED Talks we can get through, whether it's just one panel or two panels. And whatever we don't decide to do, we will make sure we roll it over into the next meeting. So that is where we were. So with that, in the interest of time, I do want to make sure we get back on track. So I'm going to introduce Joe Van Bellingham for a second time. Take it away.
Great. I think I remember where I was, but you know, I wanted to acknowledge that when we were walking through the communities, it was really inspiring for us. You know, we met many individuals that have been in their community for several decades, and how they shared with us how their neighborhood has changed over the years, what their feelings about how to make sure that those neighborhoods got integrated into Diridon Station really inspired us. I heard that from several members of our team, and it really got us thinking a little bit really deeply about how we make sure that we really understand the needs of the local community. And let me reinforce that the ideas that we're about to present today are just that. They're just ideas. And we're committed to a collaborative partner in the development of Diridon, and we believe that the priorities, concerns, aspirations of all stakeholders must be considered as we work together over the course of the next several years to bring a shared vision together. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Michael. For those of you who have not met Michael, Michael works at Google as our urban design lead. He's very passionate about the design of places. Prior to joining Google, he lived in New York City and worked on several leading mixed-use urban development projects around the world, including on the Highland project in New York City. And both Michael and I and Javier will be available if you have any questions at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Joe. I'd like to just start by saying thank you to the city for organizing this platform for us to engage with the community. Thank you to the SAG members for being so vocal. For us, this is really just a starting point to enable us to learn and listen, to inform our early design ideas and how we begin to articulate that in a spatial way. We're very early on in the process, and what we're looking at today is how we're beginning to use our integration with the community and the community input to inform our early design ideas. And what we're meaning specifically is this idea of an experiential framework. How do we connect authentically to community that exists today? How do we connect people, places, and experiences in a way that's not about buildings, but a way of connecting experiences together? Assets that exist in San Jose, the neighborhoods that are flourishing today, how can we really elaborate and be part of that composition? And then, how do we continue to work together with the community, city, and stakeholders to develop this shared vision? This is very early, but how do we take this and learn more from the presentations that you're about to give this evening and the other components that we've heard? Joe talked through some of the principles of place previously in his presentation, and we wanted to touch on this again. We really think it's very important to understand the opportunity of balance. How community is about people, places are about people and the connections between them. Innovation, the opportunity for innovation. How can we really strive to have a healthy disregard for the impossible, to overcome obstacles, create a future here in this place? Nature, the well-being of people depends on the health of the planet. And economics, to invest in bold ideas that create replicable solutions for a better future. And we think this together creates a real opportunity for balance. And the balance or place requires this idea of balance and the organization of these principles as a collective. Working with the community to identify important opportunities that will continue to inform our early design ideas, we've begun to incorporate some of the feedback and the public comment from the presentation Joe gave on the principles of place, which has been fantastic. The ongoing SAG discussion and the TED Talks have been really exciting. We're looking forward to hearing more this evening. The solution groups the SAG is leading, we think is just really exciting to incorporate and listen further around land use and design, housing and development and displacement, public spaces and neighborhoods, transportation access, jobs, and education as fundamental to our design ideas as we progress. Moving forward from the Principles of Place presentation, we felt it was critical for us to really learn more about the neighborhoods that we're a part of. So we've started a series of neighborhood walks. We've gone through a few of them, Cahill, Georgetown, Plant 51, the Delmas Park neighborhood, North Willow Glen, Lofts on the Alameda Business Association, St. Leo's neighborhood, Gardner neighborhood. We're really looking to continue to expand this opportunity and incorporate a much broader area, looking at neighborhoods, to the east and to the south as well. We've heard a lot from the community. We're really starting by listening. How can we allow this process to result in something that's different? How can we create a place that connects people, provides opportunity for community, and really thrives on this creation of experiences and linking experiences together? So we've organized what we've heard into these 5 sort of categories around nature and ecology. We've heard a lot about daylighting Los Gatos Creek, connecting people to nature and parks, enhancing biodiversity and habitat regeneration. We've heard about the Three Creeks Trail and how this green network can serve a broader connectivity of San Jose. Connectivity, we've heard a tremendous amount around connectivity and the opportunity to connect broader areas and neighborhoods of San Jose. Safe crossing over 280 on Bird. This is something that we've heard quite a bit about. Diridon Station as an amenity and a catalyst, not as a barrier or a wall as it's currently conceived and perceived from some of the adjacent neighborhoods. Built environment, vibrant mixed-use communities, places for small businesses and incubation, preserve historic and cultural assets and buildings, the opportunity for early place activation, community well-being, respecting existing neighborhoods. We've heard a lot about displacement and gentrification concerns, affordability, as we heard tonight, all extremely valid concerns. How do we collectively be part of this solution going forward? Respect local context, culture, and history. Opportunity, places where Google and the community can thrive together, connecting people to jobs. Opportunity for job creation, skill training, opportunities for construction and community jobs, opportunity to connect San Jose to the talent, and education, skills, and training opportunities as well. We're looking forward to this list continuing, hearing more from the SAG presentations and more neighborhood walks as this process continues. But today we're really looking at these 3 categories. We're looking at how can we take what we've heard and begin to inform a spatial framework on the horizontal that is about connecting people, places, and experiences. And we're organizing this into these 3 sort of themes around connectivity, community well-being, and nature and ecology. And it really is about the space between the buildings. We can look at examples of what this might mean, right? So the Highline Park, for example, in New York City is a civic space that connects people to place and allows the community to build around that public space. The Brooklyn Bridge Park in Brooklyn it did a tremendous amount of community rebuilding for the adjacent neighborhoods, providing an opportunity for open space, activity, recreation, habitat, ecology for that neighborhood. The Atlanta Beltline is a great example of creating an economic engine for a city that really was striving to connect to itself. Can we take these things that have been extremely successful around urban areas and begin to think about how can we think in a way that is specific and authentically San Jose and connects people, places, and experiences for what we're looking at here. So connecting people and diverse experiences. We've heard a lot from the community, the neighborhood walks that we've been a part of. Safe bike and pedestrian connections to surrounding neighborhoods in downtown. How can we really do that in a meaningful way? The station as an amenity for San Jose with diverse retail and cultural opportunities. How can the station not be a divider between the west and the east, but actually an amenity that is cherished and activated from a variety of different neighborhoods and cultures? How can we celebrate community, diversity, art, and culture in a meaningful way? How can we provide diverse experiences that build from San Jose's diverse people, culture, art, and history? We've heard a lot about the dancing pig sign. We should keep this. It's fantastic. It should be part of our thinking. The Victorian historic neighborhood, the station, the Deerdon Station is a really spectacular architectural asset. The art that we see exploring these different neighborhoods, the murals that really represent the culture of place. And the diversity of people here in San Jose, as we saw tonight, it's really fantastic, and it's a platform we should build upon. How can we regenerate nature? We've heard a lot about daylighting Los Gatos Creek, connecting Los Gatos Creek Trail to join with the Guadalupe River Trail. This is a really fantastic opportunity of not only enabling connectivity north-south, but utilizing this as an ecological corridor to reimagine how nature is part of our urban environments. So if we look at this map as far as context and where we are starting from, understanding the Deerdon Station area and the neighborhoods and the culture and the people that are around Deerdon. A bit of context right in the middle of the map, if you can see clearly, is the point where the confluence of the Guadalupe River and Los Gatos Creek come together, just adjacent to the SAP Center. You have Deerdon Station just south of that, the 280 corridor at the bottom of the page, and you can see City Hall Plaza towards the east. How can we start with this palette, this framework, and begin to explore opportunities of connecting nature, people, and experiences? And we have 4 primary ideas of how we could begin to think about this. There's 4 corridors, 4 experiential threads that we think could be really exciting opportunity for us to organize our design thinking for the Deerdon Station area that connects to the broader San Jose and provides a framework for us to think of a way to build a catalyst, a design catalyst to create place here at Deerdon. The first is this idea of the Los Gatos Linear Park, the Paseo San Fernando, Cultural and Innovation Walk, which is the yellow corridor moving north and south, and then this idea of a social and commercial loop. We'll talk through each of these layers in more detail and then circle back on this, but we think this is an interesting way to begin this conversation of connecting people, place, and experience. Los Gatos Linear Park. The daylighting of the creek, we think, is really exciting. Can we do this in a meaningful way? There's real challenges to do this. The intersection at Montgomery and Bird and Autumn, where all of those intersect Park, it's an incredibly complicated intersection, and mostly asphalt. How can we imagine a reality that frees this space up in a way that enables that creek to be daylit and a part of this place? There's already incredible habitat and wildlife here at the Guadalupe, in particular at the confluence point. The beavers and the salmon apparently have been spawning here. We'll see if we can build upon that. And how do we connect this trail network to be cohesive with the Guadalupe River Trail? Wouldn't it be incredible that we could use our site as a catalyst for connectivity from the bay to the redwoods? Good. And use this corridor as an amenity to bridge and link the western neighborhoods to the downtown, as an amenity for play and recreation, for habitat and ecology, for wildlife and education. We think this is a really exciting opportunity for us to explore further. And you can begin to imagine the types of experiences that this amenity could have for San Jose as a bridge between the Deerdon Station and downtown, as a way to link and connect people, places, and experiences. We love the idea of the Paseo. we think it's a really exciting aspect of San Jose. Can we build on this idea? We've heard a lot about safe bike and pedestrian connectivity from the west to the east. We see, a real opportunity to maybe rethink the station in a way that could provide that linkage from St. Leo's and Cahill to Diridon, across Los Gatos Creek into the Guadalupe River Park and to downtown, connecting San Jose State to the Rose Garden. Can we create a framework of place that could become a catalyst for how we could reimagine what this corridor could be? Last year, Spur organized a trip with the Knight Foundation and the transit agencies to go to Holland to explore different train stations to see what is possible. And one of the stations that really resonated was the Rotterdam Central Station. When you arrive at Rotterdam, you feel you're part of the city. You have arrived and you're part of that urban fabric. It's a plaza, it's not a wall. It really is a fantastic expression of architecture and urban gesture. It's a civic space. Can we think of Diridon Station as an intermodal facility that really becomes an arrival point that's integrated into San Jose? Can we think about organizing the tracks in a way that is slightly lifted above grade to provide contiguous access from Cahill Park to Diridon? You can imagine a plaza out in front of the station that could be an opportunity for farmers markets and activities and a place for people to congregate and to really be part of this place. And you can imagine this corridor connecting San Jose State downtown with Diridon, the residential neighborhoods to the west, and Santa Clara University further to the west. And the experiences along this corridor, we could imagine being very human scale. It's boutique and a variety of diverse retail opportunities that's embedded in San Jose's culture and an expression of where the retail culture is going today. There's already some fantastic shops popping up. The bakery on Santa Clara is fantastic. Is it the second floor? Second story bakery, and the project that just opened on converting the parking into a retail opportunity for women-led businesses, we think is a really fantastic example of what placemaking could be here along the Paseo. I think that project is referred to as a moment. But it's something that's very quite exciting. You can begin to see how this is really burgeoning in San Jose, and it's one that we feel is very important for us to incorporate and build upon. The north-south connection. We've heard a lot about Bird Avenue, and meeting with the neighborhood groups, the children from Delmas have to walk across Bird to get to their school, which is on the other side of 280. The picture there you can see in the middle, our colleague Ricardo took this picture. You can see the children trying to navigate through this incredibly complicated web of trucks and cars and traffic. Similarly, the neighborhoods that are adjacent to the existing rail line, we talked a bit about the Diridon station and the opportunities of slightly raising this elevation, of the tracks. Is there a way that we can navigate through the design of the station in a way that could prevent further displacement and disconnection in these neighborhoods? To really provide a solution that's integrated and innovative in a way that preserves these neighborhoods, preserves these homes, and further connects these communities. There's some fantastic buildings on site. There's a grittiness to this place that we love. There's a picture of the brick building, and there's many more. Again, the Dancing Pig sign, the murals all of these things could be really fantastic and incorporated into what we're calling this culture and innovation walk that connects safely the neighborhoods around Gardner community and North Willow Glen across the 280 and connecting north to the station. And this can be a real expression of place and innovation for San Jose. Can the station have sort of a market in the front of it, something that similar to the San Francisco Ferry Building, where you have very distinct and unique retail opportunities that extend outward into a market plaza and begin to inform what that area could be and how we can imagine that neighborhood. And connecting north past the SAP Center, really embracing the culture of the Sharks and the concerts at night. We think this is a fantastic amenity to have in Diridon. We really need to celebrate that culture and enhance that as part of this place. So you can imagine the experiences here being quite different and distinct. One that's more around culture, about pop-up, the grittiness of place, the authenticity of San Jose, and one that really strives to embrace this innovation ecosystem in a way that displays the richness of San Jose. The last one that we'll talk to, the fourth component, is what we're referring to as the social and commercial loop. We talked a bit about this cultural aspect of the Sharks and the game day, the events, the concerts, from San Pedro Market and the square there. It really is a celebration. It's a parade that really draws people in along Santa Clara. And on the west side of Santa Clara, there's some really exciting things happening as far as pop-ups and restaurants, and you have the Whole Foods, and there really is this excitement happening, this vibrancy along Santa Clara. Can we build upon that? And if the tracks are slightly elevated, then you can imagine Santa Clara connecting from Whole Foods at grade all the way to in front of the front of the SAP or the arena, all the way into downtown, which wouldn't be such a barrier as it is today. Can we celebrate this corridor with the use of art and cultural exhibit, similar to what we see happening today in the City Hall Plaza? Into this network, which is similar to a loop of sorts that really begins to frame this opportunity of connecting to the broader San Jose and inform this commercial component for cultural integration, different new future modes of transportation and getting around. Obviously, we've seen a lot about the scooters zipping around town. Can we provide a safe, encouraged framework for them to really enable that future mode of mobility and connectivity, while providing a platform for events and parades and the cultural components that are so vibrant in San Jose? You can imagine this being a very exciting experience. That this loop begins to link these experiences together in a very, very distinct way. Which brings us to the composite. These four pieces, these four corridors for connecting experiences together, begins to inform how we would begin to think about place here in the Diridon Station area. The four colors are aligned with those broader moves. So a bit of orientation, you can see the SAP Center just to the right side of number 4. The green line would be Los Gatos Creek, the station just behind the orange line there. And so you can see how our thinking could become a catalyst for creating place here in the area. It's about connecting people, places, and experiences that begins from the broader San Jose. So beginning with how it connects outwards into informing what this space is within the district. So if we walk through this, you can see that the idea of the esplanade, the Los Gatos Linear Park really becoming that thread of connectivity from the station to downtown. This idea of the Paseo really becoming to inform the center of the site, which is a sort of a cultural hub, a catalyst for imagining what this place could be, and the activities and the sort of the public life framework of this place could be. The idea of the north-south, the cultural and innovation walk as an expression of an innovation ecosystem, a maker space, culture and art really being displayed here in this place. And then the fourth, the idea of the social and commercial loop, becoming more of the social side of the district, engaging and really fostering that opportunity of the social components and aspects around the station and the concerts that are happening there. And in conclusion, these four components we think are most critical to create balance. A catalyst for creating place, but are in balance with community, nature, innovation, and economics. This really is a starting point, but we feel it's one that is quite exciting for us. We're looking forward to hearing more from this TED Talks, the more neighborhood walks that we're going to continue doing, to continue understanding in a more comprehensive way ideas and opportunities to inform our these early design thinking. The solution group's feedback we're really looking forward to, and the regional forums and the workshops the city is planning. Thank you very much for your time.
Michael, thank you for the thoughtful presentation. Clearly, you've spent a lot of time in the area thinking about the place and the assets in the community. We have some time. I think now, we obviously the agenda we had planned is no longer our agenda for this evening. So, in a sense, let's sort of take a breath. And we have a great opportunity now for all of you to ask questions, give reflections, bring up things that maybe you think they hadn't thought about, or things that you liked. So let's start our usual process here of put your name tag vertically. We will go around the room. I guess we'll start over here with Nadia, and we can move around and then come back again. And please remember to state your Nicole, you lost your name here. Please remember to state your name and your organization so that everyone in the community can hear and know who you are, and because it's all being recorded. Okay, Nadia.
Nation of Silicon Valley. Okay, it's on. So this is interesting, and it sounds great. I'm not an urban planner or anything. I have a question about where Google fits into this vision. Like, do you envision? Because we're hearing that you're buying buildings, like, in certain places. Like, do you envision that there's like a campus that's a part of this, that's like connected in all these like four areas that people bike from like the Los Gatos Creek Trail to like the other, I don't know, like what's your vision of where you see Google like in this greater vision of this project, of the station area that you've presented?
Yeah, some of the preliminary thinking is obviously this being a mixed use place, so a component of the site being where the campus or the office workers are. Kind of envisioning in front of the station to be that mixed use, really permeable space of residential and retail. Next to the Sharks Stadium, you could see probably some events centers, things like that. And then obviously residential mixed in on the broader 240 acres as well. So really a mixed use, but trying to concentrate the office in one zone, because our people work better when we're close together and can collaborate. But really want that heart in front of the station to be the heartbeat, where it's really mixed use, lots of residential, different retail experiences.
Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sutherland, and I represent the Domus Park neighborhood. And I just want to say thank you for getting us back to the point where we can dream. For so long, through the economy and through the loss of some of the things that the city used to have, the tools the city used to be able to use to encourage development, we've been told so many things were not possible. You've brought us back to the, or me personally, to the point where I can start thinking about what is possible. And I really do appreciate that, because it's given me a lot of cause to think. And I know that displacement, affordability is all going to be part of this conversation, but I personally completely appreciate the big vision and the dream, because it gives me a good place to start from, so thank you.
John Pettigo, Father John Pettigo from PACT. I really appreciated the big picture of it, and everything looks really good far away, but getting up close is a bit of a mess. And so I'd be really curious. I mean, I like the iterations, I like the image, I like the big thinking, but I'm also really curious about the specifics. For instance, how do we, how do these corridors, and how does the idea of wherever Google is going to be placed, how is that going to drive the economic well-being and give economic opportunity to the residents that are not just in that immediate area, but also throughout the city? I mean, we've heard a lot of that concern. So I think that whatever we present or how we move forward, we need to kind of figure out the narration needs to include some aspect of that, because I was left wanting some of that piece. Also, the reality is that a lot of the tech companies tend to be closed campuses, and I'm not sure what your thinking is. I know you mentioned very briefly that we want to work together, and I get the idea of any kind of company wanting their employees and their team members to be kind of close, and you kind of want them to be insular. On the other hand, we look at economic opportunities for small businesses in the area that we're talking about activating this. If there's a number of people, 10,000 to 15, 20,000 people that are on campus, I know that there's a real incentive to keep them, close to campus. I would be really curious to see if we're also thinking about how can we spread that economic well-being further out to include some of our own smaller businesses and enterprising people that are in San Jose. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities that I was hearing that were coming up, but it would be really important to have a true dialogue as to kind of know a little bit more specifically, and how, again, the picture of how everything looks really nice, how is that really driving the economic well-being of our people? Because that really that's the crux for what a lot of people that we saw earlier tonight, and for my community that I'll present later on tonight. It is about the economic well-being and the ability to stay in your community rather than being pushed out.
Thank you.
So very similar, Maria Noel Fernandez with Silicon Valley Rising, and so I grew up in San Jose. I'm very proud San Josean, and a lot of this sounds beautiful, and something I would love for our communities to really be able to benefit from. And as you're showing these pictures, I get excited about thinking about riding a bike through the park, and but frankly, at the same time, I also am very conflicted, because I believe that far too many in our community will never get to see this, because they're being displaced and gentrified out of our communities and neighborhoods. And so while I see the beautiful images and really am honestly excited about having something that we can be proud of, I am very worried and a bit disappointed that, given the public conversation and the conversations at this committee around the concerns around displacement and gentrification, that hasn't been centered already. I saw it was on the long list, but that your visions around how to address it haven't yet been centered. And so as we move forward in this conversation, my hope is that will be a priority in your sharing what your vision is to address that issue, and how our communities can see this actually come to fruition and still be a part of this community.
You know, I think with any of these, you should feel free to respond. It's not just a comment. It can be a dialogue. So if you feel like you, some are comments, but if you do want to respond, I think you should do that, and we should start having a dialogue about this.
Just wanted to follow up on Maria's comments. Thank you very much for that input. It's something that, affordability, displacement, and gentrification are things that are on our radar, in our mind, and thinking through. Tonight we were discussing the early design thinking. We've been attending the solution group meeting to be able to learn more of how we can be part of the solution. So we look forward to continuing that dialogue and at some point have a discussion with this group of how we address those issues. Thank you.
And can you introduce yourself?
Sorry, yes. Javier Gonzalez, Public Policy Manager for Google, and also a local native San Josean.
Thank you.
Edward Salma, Shasta Henshaw Park Neighborhood Association. One of the things with all the planning and land use activities that our neighborhood association has done, one of the things that I'm hopeful from both your presentation and from the nature of the SOG as a whole, too often we see developments where there's token amounts of public space or token amounts of green space or token amounts of in lieu fees, and we don't get the kind of comprehensive amenities that we're talking about here. So one of the things that I'm optimistic about that I hope does come to fruition is you're not just talking about the amenities that would be on your personally owned land. You're talking about how can you work with the city to create larger amenities, larger connections above and beyond what are on your parcels themselves. And that's the kind of cohesiveness that far too often has been lacking, is how we end up with all the neighborhoods kind of so piecemeal. So hopefully your vision is something that with the city you can continue to apply those practices outside of your parcels and to the adjacent properties and neighborhoods as well.
Hi, Jeffrey Buchanan with Working Partnerships. So at this point, we're 11 months out from when this project was first announced, and so I think a lot of us were really excited, for the first time to hear about conceptually what this project was going to look like. And so I don't know, I can't speak for everyone. I'm interested to hear others' thoughts, but I had really high hopes for what we were going to hear here. And I subscribe to Dwell. I like good design. A beautiful downtown would be fabulous, but given the tone and tenor and the extent of the concerns that have been addressed, since last June about housing affordability, about displacement, about homelessness, I'm a little disappointed that you guys kind of stepped around the whole issue. I didn't even hear, in all these, beautiful social loops and other things, how are you going to address your social responsibility for the folks that are going to face displacement? I was just a little surprised, and I take the point, certainly, Javier, that you guys have been a part of the solution groups, but Google's invested tens of millions of dollars in buying land at this point. You guys want to buy, over $100 million worth of public land from the city of San Jose. We need to see some serious solutions. Let's dream big about how do we ensure no displacement. That's the kind of big dream I think we want to hear. And frankly, it's a little disappointing to see no real vision there and a kind of sidestep. So interested to hear how and when we're going to hear some real solutions and some real thinking from your team on this issue. Certainly we're willing to engage and we'll be forwarding our solutions. We've already put some of them out there, but when are we going to hear from your team on that big issue?
No, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the comment. I think that, as we know that the Station Area Advisory Group was formed to be able to collect input and feedback from the community, and so these are the things that we're hearing. So at some point, we know we'll have to be part of the conversation with this group and the city to figure out what are the solutions to address the issues that you raised.
I think collectively we have to look at solutions. So it'd be this is a complex issue. We know it needs to be addressed, and we're looking for feedback. We're looking for ideas. And we collectively got to think through this together. It's not something that's easily solvable. It's certainly something we're up for the challenge for. And just, this one's going to take a little bit more time to figure out. We know it's got to be addressed. So just, we just got to work together to figure it out. We will.
And I appreciate that, but Google's a company that's been around here in the Valley and has seen the whole span of the housing crisis. So it's not like this is a new scenario. So I just hope that you're taking this all seriously and look forward to working with you on it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Kevin Chrisman of the Gardner neighborhood. And I'd like to kind of echo what Kathy Sutherland was saying earlier. It seems like the city told us back in the SNI days, Strong Neighborhoods Initiative, that dream big. And then we had to dial back a lot of those dreams with the housing crash that happened around 2007, and the demise of the redevelopment agency. So we lost a lot of our ability to do the dreams that we thought of. And I don't know if you guys are mind readers or you were able to incorporate from our walkthrough that much. But I think I'm encouraged because our walkthrough in our neighborhood didn't happen that long ago, and some of the things that we mentioned show up here. And the idea of including Gardner in your cultural and innovation walk is exciting. I think it's something that can invigorate the neighborhood and help as far as the kids being able to get across to school and things like that. The whole idea here that you express is something from the Good Neighbor Committee about making Diridon a destination, and this certainly makes it look like, with the connectivity and the different accesses in and out, that it certainly offers that kind of a situation where it will be a destination. And just thank you not only for encouraging us, like Kathy said, to dream again, but giving us some hope. We know it's going to be an ongoing dialogue, but maybe some of the people didn't hear. I think Harvey probably picked up on it too. But thank you for the idea of elevating the station, like in Rotterdam, so that we can get the train tracks up high enough to go over 280 and over to 87 and then down into Tamian is a big thing for our neighborhood. That this maybe doesn't make a big difference to some of the other people in the room, but for like about 35 houses in Gardner and 11 houses in North Willow Glen, it means that they may be able to keep their houses and their properties. And so this is a good start at not going backwards as far as the big thing about losing houses and creating more of a homeless situation for people who have been in those houses sometimes for 3 and 4 generations. So I applaud you on your early efforts, and I think with what I've seen from you as a group, that we can certainly have many points where we can connect in the future and make this dream work for the whole city of San Jose in a positive and relative way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was a good presentation. My name is Bill Souders, and I represent the San Jose Downtown Residents Association. And I live on what I hope does become the Santa Clara Social Street. I like that idea. I'll let my colleagues talk about the social challenges or affordable housing and so forth. I'd like to talk a little bit about urban design. Coincidentally, I just did my first full walk of the length of the High Line. It's a great achievement in New York City, and I've got a question about kind of the chicken and the egg. Last time I talked about early activation as part of this overall project. The things you're showing here can't possibly just be Google. So based on your experiences elsewhere, I would love to learn more about what other sorts of partnerships you would need to make this a reality, and when should we be getting started with that?
Yeah, there's many things. I mean, You know, for instance, what I really liked the other day when we went down to San Pedro Market is the fact that they opened up that parking, and those are pop-up sort of retail, 3 women, small businesses. I think they're in there for a period of 3 to 4 months to incubate new space. I think, so we got to think about retail as encouraging the growth of small businesses, because that adds vibrancy to place. To give you an example, I think temporary activation is very important, and that could again be supporting the smaller businesses that eventually could incubate and move into more permanent places on site. So we got to think like that, because place is about vibrancy. I mean, you know, it's clear when we walked around, like, having Greenleaf. Ate the whole loaf on my way home. It was so good. You know, Crema Coffee Shop. You look at all these really interesting shops around there, and, you know, how do you encourage that and continue to build on that? Is that what you were kind of getting to?
Yeah, to a point. Again, the vision that you lay out is going to be multiple years, and the chicken and egg question is, do we wait until Google's here and then start doing the rest, or do we begin doing the rest well in advance of Google arriving? And maybe it's a city question. You referenced those pop-ups on San Pedro. Yeah. We can't even close that block for some reason when that should clearly be a paseo and should have been for years. And there are many other examples like that. When you talk about Santa Clara as the social street, at what point do we decide we're not going to have cars parked on Santa Clara anymore? So there should be simple things that we could do that would activate what is not activated today, quite frankly.
Wow. I moved into, I bought my house in 1983 in North Willow Glen. It was a block from the railroad tracks. It was under the flight path of the railroad. It had a lot of negatives. It was painted orange and had black bars on the outside and inside, because she was so frightened. The bedroom had double sets of bars. It was not a good neighborhood. And, I saw the bones of a renovation project, of a restoration project. I didn't use the word gentrification, but I guess it would be called gentrification now. But I saw the bones of an area that could become something wonderful. Well, North Willow Glen has become wonderful. Gardner has become something wonderful. We took 20 years of our hard work, but individually I restored my house, but as collectively we restored the neighborhood and made it actually even better than it originally was. I always looked towards the arena, which Kevin and I used to have hold tickets to the Sharks games, and we would walk to the arena, and I'd think, gee, I wish somebody would get it together to put together a mega project. I sat on the Diridon Good Neighbor Committee. I sat on all kinds of panels, the 2040 panel, the revision to the 2040, and kept coming up with these urban, complete neighborhoods, mixing retail and walkable, bikeable connections, and I'm looking at what you've put up here, and it's exactly what I envision. I do see your issue, because I've watched my neighborhood where I paid $72,000 for my house, and Zillow now says it's 1.1, and I'm going, I could not buy my house today. The reality is we've got to find some solutions for those issues, because I indeed wanted to make sure that the children of my friends are able to buy into the same neighborhoods, and that we continue to have a mix of people. That's what drove me into my neighborhood. It was a lovely neighborhood in terms of the kinds of people that were there. And I see that you, as Google, have vision to do that. San Jose would like to do that, but there's hamstringed by so many rules and so many issues and lack of financing and what have you, that I'm looking to you as a white knight to help us with jumpstart these issues. So I thank you for looking at the neighborhoods. I thank you for coming up with a solution to potentially bypass the neighborhood with the high-speed rail. Definitely the four pathways of the daylighting Los Gatos Creek. You just answered all my prayers.
Thank you. Stephen.
I think that was a good transition. I'm Stephen McMahon, San Jose Unified School District. I'm the epitome of all the rules and bureaucracy. And in the over 150 years of the school district existence, we regret almost all of our sales of public lands. Because once you sell them, you never get them back. There is a fundamental difference between Stanford and the University of California. There's a fundamental difference between the sidewalk and the private property. I'm a little leery. I actually totally disagree. I don't believe that Google should build public spaces. I believe you should build fantastic office spaces for your workers. I believe the city should build fantastic public spaces. And unless the sale agreement has covenants, easements, rights of way that guarantee it remains public, if the economy changes in 20 years, why would you pay to do anything with the railroad? Why would you pay to daylight any public waterway? I mean, that's the public's works and responsibilities, and that is not in a disrespectful way to you at all. You are a business, make money, do your thing. The public needs to safeguard the taxpayers' interests and make sure. I think the city should be sharing this vision for public walkways, because if Google has jurisdiction of the public walkways, it's Stanford, not the University of California. It's San Jose Unified regretting all this beautiful building and land we sold for one-time money that we never have back. And I, again, want to emphasize, I think what you do as a company is your jurisdiction. But if the sale agreement transfers everything to Google, why would you build any of this as a private business? And why would we let the city acquiesce on its responsibility to provide public spaces? So that's a long way of saying I'm now looking at all of these expectations you've set. I don't think we should expect Google to daylight anything. I think we should have the city ensure that the transfer agreements have easements, rights of way, whatever is needed to ensure that if you intend public spaces as part of your office complex, they remain public spaces. And that is going to be a challenge, but again, I'll emphasize 150 years of San Jose Unified, every single land transaction that went from public to private, we wish we didn't do it.
I actually think somebody from the city should talk about why the land sale is required, because it is an important point.
Okay, should we address this maybe at the, we've talked about it some, should we do it at another meeting, or do you want to?
It's a quick
Or do you want to do a?
right? It's part of the SARA process, is that not true?
Yeah.
So the 5 large properties that are the successor agency to the redevelopment agency properties are required to be sold by the long-range property management plan that was approved by the State Department of Finance. And the reason is the 14 taxing entities, including San Jose Unified, including the city, including the county, including others, want the proceeds from those sales to go flow to their entities, right? They deserve the proceeds from those property sales. So for the other city properties, it was envisioned in the exclusive negotiations agreement that those would be sold. So that's what the discussion has been so far.
One clarifying question on that. for you, Kim. I mean, couldn't the city of San Jose or any other public entity choose to be the purchaser and then consider a long-term lease? Or I think this question of like, it needs to be sold is not a definitive thing. You know, the city could bond out and, you know, borrow money to choose to buy that land and lease it. So it's not required under SARA that we sell it per se. The sale needs to happen, but the city of San Jose could choose to buy it and then lease it out to Google or anyone else.
Yeah, I would have to look into that. I mean, we're following the process of the long-range property management plan that was approved. Sorry. Which requires that the properties be sold at fair market value and the proceeds from that sale distributed to the 14 taxing entities.
Why don't, so we can sort of stay on what we started with, why don't we have that as an item that maybe we can come back at the next meeting and get some clarity on that and keep on the thread that we have now. Okay, now.
Thank you.
Now your comments.
So just four reflections, great presentation, I enjoyed it. On the cultural and innovation walk, I just want to reiterate, I think it's really important to acknowledge, and this is for not just Google, but for San Jose and the rest of us as well, to acknowledge our history in a really deep and meaningful way, and the waves of immigration and the waves of change that we've had from the Spanish founding of California and the Mexican rule of California, and San Jose being the first capital of California, to our ag history and military history, semiconductor history, and waves of technology innovation. And I think it's important because it really conveys that there is continuous change, but that we are rooted in something. We care about this place, and there's a reason that we want to stay here. And to that point as well, I think it's really critically important, and I haven't seen any city in California do it well, is to recognize our Native American history. I'm a majority Native American, and you know, I go to the Northwest and I go to Canada, and you see First People constantly referenced, and that never happens here. And I think it's really important, and it's a real tragedy, and we need to recognize that roots. Third, Guadalupe River Park. I think you know, and I'm going to mention it in my 4-minute talk, that we've launched an initiative to really look at making that a great central green space for San Jose, and all the connections to Los Gatos Creek, as well as other neighborhoods, east, west, north, south, are really critically important. But really elevating and realizing a grand vision for that park is, I think, a really important part of this whole conversation. And then finally, to Father Pedigo's point, really making sure that we have people on the street, that they are interacting with the community, that they are benefiting from all these investments that are being made, both public and private, and really connecting with this place and its people. So I think that's an important thing for Google to think about in terms of your development. Thanks.
Hi, Sarah McDermott, South Bay Labor Council. I have a comment and a question. First of all, I just want to point to, I think there's a disconnect when it comes to the frustration level you're hearing from people. We understand where you are in the SAG process. The problem is we feel like you only started listening when the SAG process started. We've been talking about displacement since the ENA popped up as a council item. We had town halls, and I understand if you guys weren't ready to discuss with the community, but we don't understand why you weren't ready to listen. And so I think that is the frustration you're hearing. I'm glad you're listening now. I'm glad you're hearing the displacement issue, but you're behind where we want to be. We want to be really discussing solutions and hearing your ideas. The question I had, can you go back to the slide with the 4 corridors? The other one. Yeah. So getting at the public land question, it seems like all of these are public access, but I'm curious what your idea is on the ownership of these. Are they going, are these going to be public access, public land, or are they just going to be public assets with a private ownership?
That's to be discussed with the city. I mean, we don't have a position on that right now. Like, so that's part of the process.
Okay, because I think that gets to the concern, right? Like, if we're gonna make public spaces, what does it mean? I think there's some concern about the idea of public spaces that the city and the community don't have a voice in or control in over time.
Yep, I understand. I mean, we have obviously public places on our existing campuses where the public move through the sites freely that we own, and there's public places where the city owns on our campuses. So it's what's in the best interest through the discussions with the city.
You know, one of the points that I think we can bring up about what's public and what's private and something to be determined as we move forward, an important critical point. Okay, next. Derek.
Thank you. Derek Seaver with the San Jose Downtown Association. Also a quick comment and then a question for, I think, further clarification. My comment is I just want to say thank you, on behalf of the association for the attention that you all clearly paid to connectivity between the west side of downtown and the downtown core. This was a large topic last evening at the Transportation Solutions Group. It's a large topic for our board and our members, and I think throughout this presentation it showed the care and attention that you all paid for that, and that's exciting for us, so thank you for that. My question, though, is just a little bit further clarification on the social and commercial loop component, particularly the design considerations that you all have around the track elevation and the connection of Santa Clara and the Alameda, which is obviously a connection that already exists, but what that track elevation would look like. I know you're early in the conceptual phase, but making that a little bit more seamless and adding even further to that larger connectivity that you've taken care with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not our station to design. We just gave some thinking, that we've shared that if you elevated the tracks about 20 feet, then obviously you can get a connection over to Cahill Park. You got enough height there to have a retail component, but it's not our station to design. We're just trying to share some ideas with the authorities.
Norma?
And my name is Norma Camacho, Santa Clara Valley Water District, and I just wanted to make a comment on the approach that Google is taking. I know that we've had, basically so much pressure on trying to develop affordable housing in this area, trying to house the homeless. I know that at the Water District, we see the impacts to the creeks on a daily basis as encampments start to build and start to rebuild, and we're constantly going out there, dismantling, and then they get re-energized in other areas, and so it's a huge struggle. So I think a lot of the discussion, the pressure, the anxiety that you're seeing in some of this room is like years and years of built-up tension. But I'm really glad to see that Google hasn't just come out and, gone into their little ivory tower and then come out with the solution that they feel for affordable housing, because typically when developers sometimes do that, what you get is affordable projects, but not an affordable, livable community. And many times they fail in the long term to really provide a community that's cohesive and that is really livable. So I know that we want to rush and find what the solution is, and we want to react to the solution, but I'm glad you're taking the time to really understand the community, understand the circulation and the potential, understand how the existing communities really interact with each other and how they could interact better before you come out with the silver bullet on what your solution to this is, but trying to take the time to really understand what you're dealing with here in this area. So I thank you for that.
Nicole Brown, Lofts on the Alameda. I just want to say I haven't been involved in this process until the SAG, but I'm impressed with how well you guys have listened. I feel like you've listened for mixed use instead of an office desert. I feel like you really listened to our last meeting, which was, you know, a month ago, of Parks as Pathways, connecting Guadalupe River to Los Gatos Creek, and also that connectivity and care from downtown to the west side. I'm very impressed by your guys' work, and I guess just, you know, take note to take that same care and know that you're building in an area that's enduring a housing crisis. And so that is something that we need that same care to be brought into. But thank you guys, you've done a really amazing job.
Matt Vanderslice, Greenbelt Alliance. Thank you for these early ideas, particularly the breaking a very complicated set of interrelated issues into a few topics to talk about this evening around connectivity, placemaking, the integration of nature. There are many other topics that we look forward to getting into and exploring the interconnections between them, but this, I think, was a helpful bite for us to start chewing on. I particularly appreciated some of the ideas about how to integrate nature into the site and into some of the adjacent neighborhoods and communities, and I think hearing the concepts around daylighting the creek and creek interconnection and pathways are really inspiring, and I think reflect things that San Jose and the broader community has been interested in for quite some time.
Louder, please.
Two small thoughts on this issue. Most of these concepts seem to be inspiring ideas about the site and some of the connection to the adjacent neighborhoods. You had also mentioned a really bold, interesting concept about connecting from the bay to the redwoods. And I think with a regional project, a project of such regional significance, it will be really helpful for this project to think about actions of regional scale, or at least of city scale, and thinking about connections between some of our most important large-scale open spaces will be really an important topic to think about through this process. And I'd love to hear if you've got any thinking on that front. The second question was around essentially the question of park equity, about how we integrate issues of social equity with the integration of urban greening and ensuring that open spaces as a public amenity is a resource that serves people across the income spectrum. So those two initial questions for you.
The broader connectivity question, it's really where we wanted to really begin this discussion. How can we think about the broader connectivity of place, contexting, the context being the region, to inform what we should do in the Diridon station area itself? We felt starting at the station, it lost sight of the opportunity that surrounded us. If we take that as a framework and then use it as a catalyst to create that design thinking, then from the inside out, we feel like we can really encourage change and connectivity in a meaningful way that extends much further beyond the boundaries of our site. So it is absolutely where we wanted to begin this discussion. The social equity piece.
The second question was around the intersection of social equity and natural spaces, the park equity issue. If you have any early thinking on those concepts.
If I understand your question right, I mean, parks should be for all. I mean, I think if you're asking, are you asking, like, when you mean social equity, you mean like diverse groups having access to public spaces, accessibility and
I think
standards, and is that what you're talking about?
It's an emerging field in the world of thinking about parks and open space. Is essentially what are the array of questions we ought to be asking ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Within that concept. So one of them is public access. Another is programming. How do you ensure that the programming you're using for your public spaces is culturally competent and engages people across the income spectrum. I think another issue we heard was around homelessness and how you address homelessness as you are creating and managing public spaces for all in ways that address folks across the economic spectrum.
Yeah, there's a lot in that, obviously. But I mean, there was I'll give you a little example. One of the images in there was a park in Centennial Park in Sydney, Australia, which I just loved. It's a kids' park that was designed in a natural way that tied to the story of this eel that actually migrates up into the park to breed and down. And they use the park as an educational tool to the kids. The kids are actually very much, all the school kids in the area come to the park to learn about nature, this history of this, the eel, and it's also a playground, built all using natural materials. So it serves a multiple function as a park. I love that kind of concept of how do you use a park to actually serve multiple purposes, you know, on a broad scale. Homelessness, I'm not sure I have an answer for that right now. We'd have to think through that. It's obviously an issue in a lot of cities that are along the park, but we'd have to think through that, obviously.
I was just going to just follow up and just say, you know, this idea that you mentioned, or your second question, I think it's something that could be discussed in the solution groups that discuss public spaces and neighborhoods, so that we can get some of that feedback. Or what are your thoughts as a body? I think that would be very helpful for us to inform us as we're thinking through this process.
Nathan Ho with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, also a San Jose resident. Just want to thank you for your thoughtful thinking on this. It showed, especially just in the presentation, I think you could have started here as kind of like, you called it the heart or the gem, and kind of showed it off there. But I really appreciated that you looked at the greater map. So I really, well, it's hard to see here and hard to see up there, that what I really came away with was a sense of connection, that there are opportunities for innovative and exciting circulation through this area, not just through the station or the station area, but really through the downtown and a great part of San Jose there. So I really appreciate that, and very excited by that as well. I took my family to Christmas in the park in the winter, and parked by Diridon because we took the Christmas light rail to downtown with my kids, and that was a lot of fun. But we walked back. Along San Fernando, and what I think of when I see something like this is, would it be great for my family to walk through this, you know, to come back and to stop and stay even longer, even though it was past the kids' bedtime. So it's really exciting for me to think about. In terms of the loop, it made me think about my time on the East Coast in Boston around the Freedom Trail. That wherever you are in Boston, you look down and you see this brick kind of trail throughout the whole thing. Not saying that that's what this has to be, but what that did for me is it connects the city. It connects that wherever you are in the city, that you know that you stand on that brick line, that somewhere along 2 miles away, someone's standing on that too. And so I really appreciate the way that that connection really comes through there. I think the opportunities for circulation of people, of cars, hopefully not a lot of cars to the area, but of bikes, I know that's coming in the next iteration of what this might be. I think those are some of the challenges of the details of it would be great just to close all these streets. But that means that wherever you close it, that's where the cars are stopping. I know we're trying to move away from that culture, but how we think about that really make it not just a destination, but as you presented, a whole picture of circulation, not just some place that people go and then leave. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, we have one more comment.
Did I miss my turn?
No, I think we'll do.
Hi,
We'll end with you, Leslie.
Okay, Leslie Corsilia with Silicon Valley at Home, and actually it's more of a process question because there's been a lot of different comments around housing and homelessness and displacement, and as I remember from one of the first meetings, that's a topic we're going to have, but it's like the last meeting. Is that correct? Because there appears to be a lot of interest in it, and I'm just wondering when we're going to have the time to dig into that topic.
So based off of actually 2 meetings ago, we moved that up. So I was going to announce at the end of, where is it? At the end of this meeting. So we told you we were going to have to schedule a July meeting to get through all the different solution groups. So the housing displacement gentrification group would be coming back at early July, July 9th, actually, to this group. So we'll be having that conversation earlier, and if we need to take, a few swipes at it, we will, given the stuff that's been brought up today and the kind of meaty issue area that's been in. We did discuss that in our solution group earlier in this week, or last week, sorry.
Okay, actually, I'll do a quick, so I want to thank the Google team here for presenting. As we heard, it was early design thinking and obviously lots of compliments on some of the design thinking and lots of other things to think about in terms of the impact and the relationship between the physical design and the social aspects of the community. So more to come. So I want to thank you all for your presentation and the responses, and everyone else for their thoughtful comments. I'm going to turn over to Lee to take the next steps.
All right, so I know we talked about trying to bite off a little bit of the TED Talks tonight. I think we're going to move all of those to the next meeting and figure out what to do. There's 5 of you in the first group, and at 4 minutes, that's 20 minutes. And kind of the best part of the TED Talks for me last time, and what several of you said, wasn't the actual TED Talk, it was the dialogue afterwards, and I don't want to rush that for any of the panelists. So we will come back, the next meeting will be all 3 panels of TED Talks exclusively, so we can kind of engage in this dialogue. I really feel like I'm the teacher that said study, there's going to be a pop quiz, and then we don't do it. So I know Edward's going to hit me over the head on the way out, because I think he did his like 3 in the morning on the way back from Denver, so apologize for that. So we're going to jump into public comment. I'll round us out. One of the things, I know several of you, because it felt like a pop quiz, rushed to get us your PowerPoints for the TED Talk. So now you've got an additional 3 weeks, which I think is good. Several of you were, as you can see, Michael kind of incorporated a lot of what he heard at the TED Talks last week into his presentation. This gives you guys a chance that are presenting in 3 weeks. You've heard from Michael and kind of that design. Several of you, especially some of the neighborhood leaders, are talking about kind of the land use spaces. And we also have additional solution groups. So if so be it, you want to change your presentation, modify it, give additional context given the conversation will continue, that's totally allowed. So we will send out that reminder. So with that, I'm going to give it to Matt. We'll do public comment. We do have a few different folks that want to speak, and then I'll come back and close this out.
Can I ask a quick question? I
Yes.
don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Maria Noel Fernandez with Silicon Valley Rising. I know we've said that we want to get the community meetings scheduled. Can you just say how quickly we're going to get those on the calendar? What's the timeline with that? Because clearly there's a lot of desire for voices to be heard, and so I'm feeling urgency and concern that those aren't moving fast enough.
Yeah, so are we, and so Lori coming on board is a big part of that. I think you're going to be hearing independently from a variety of us to get those scheduled. We are going to target the last 2 weeks in June to begin some of those regional forums. And then I think based off of the conversation, with Father John and several others from some of the solution groups, and then the conversation we had tonight, I do think we want to start kind of filtering in some of these smaller neighborhood meetings and reaching out to some of the different groups. We mentioned how they come into this process and maybe present some of their ideas. So I think waiting until the next SAG meeting is probably too late to give you an update, so we will be updating you via email or some phone calls to get you guys engaged. But we feel that as well.
Okay, thanks, Lee. So we're going to do public comments. Just a little warning, we're still going to give 2 minutes to each presenter. We have each public commenter, I think we have 6, so it might be a couple minutes over past 9. First, public comment from Matthew Warren, followed by Patricia Palmeras Mason.
Good evening. My name is Matt Warren. I'm with the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley. And I just have some really brief comments. As the free lawyers in this advisory group, we've had a few questions about the Brown Act and how it applies to all of you. And I looked back to the Assistant City Attorney's presentation, and he didn't make it very clear, but you are all allowed to talk to other members of this group outside of the meetings. You're allowed to talk to other individuals, as long as you don't make a decision of more than 20 of you outside of the public's view. The Brown Act does not prevent you from doing that, and you really should be talking to, learning from your colleagues, because everyone else is the expert in the room. I'd also like to take this opportunity to criticize staff's use of the Brown Act to slow down this process. It's only tonight that we were supposed to hear all of the constituencies and all of the different ideas that people want to bring out, and due to some unforeseen events, we weren't able to even get to all of those. Much more robust discussion needs to take place about what we can expect to see from Google by way of a community benefits agreement, and space on the agenda needs to be created for this discussion very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Palomares Mason, followed by Michael Mendoza.
First of all, I'd like to recognize first is the lonely nation that we're in. I was taught that I must recognize the land first. I am part of the Bracero movement, and my uncle came here. In the Gardner area, is the 5th generation living in Gardner from my family. Okay? There's been many changes in Gardner. There's a lot of pain. Yet, there's been many meetings that I have not attended, but yet have asked many questions. My community has asked many questions, concerns, worries. We've gone through so many levels of life. Google came in, we had a walk. I was glad that they finally showed up, that I got to see a face, that I was able to see a body that was representing Google. Yet with that, we're in a time of hurt and pain of so many levels because budget cuts, when people were losing their homes, when people are getting sick. At one time, my neighborhood was the cannery place where everybody walked to their canneries. There were about 5 canneries in my neighborhood. We grew as a big family, looking out for each other. And still, we're still that kind of community. We're trying to look for each other, especially our seniors. We're forgetting there's a lot of seniors. We're forgetting there's a lot of youth that are growing up. There's a lot of kids that are in the foster home system that need a place where to learn to be welcomed. So I do understand the pains of many. There is domestic violence. There's men that have gone the wrong way, or women too have lost. So in San Jose, we have many pains that sometimes some of us don't want to hear. They need some kind of Band-Aid to heal, to be better. We're all trying to be better in this world. We're all say that there's even a song that says, "Do you know the way to San Jose?" That song should be more stronger than now, not just because of Google. I understand it's only 2 minutes, but reality, I need the people from Google here for me for a moment. I really don't need this.
Thank you. Michael Mendoza.
I have something for them to understand. that is sacred to us. In my community, ask the Shika warriors. Sunrise is all direction of all men. Sunset is of all our women that have died when they gave the birth. The other side is of all our seniors that have passed on to be black. All our children, our son, our mother earth. And we all live in San Jose, and that's Mother Land. So to each one of you, I'm giving this match, this seed, this feather, to our community of San Jose.
Okay, Michael Mendoza. Michael here. All right, Christian Oland.
Hi, everyone. This is Christian. My name is Christian from PACT. Just to echo what the previous speaker said, there is a lot of pain in the community. I encourage you to step out of your comfort zones and see what it is. We are San Jose, that's our slogan, right? But there are so many people who say that, and we don't all look alike. I'm saddened that we don't get to do a TED Talks because I think Father John Pedigo had a really good one to express some of the stories. I bet everyone did. But to express some of the stories of voices often not represented. So a little teaser for next time. But just to reemphasize that the effect here is not, there's a Google effect. It's not just Google coming in. It's what does Google coming in, what will that do? There will be more, I don't know if Adobe's here on the table, but Adobe's like doubling their size. I think having that like incorporated into this dialogue, this narrative, and seeing what other companies are coming in, that there's an effect that's gonna be magnified, not just with Google's scope, but with what development that's gonna attract and what that's gonna do to exponentially expand this impact. So not to discount that, really be intentional. Around 20 years or 2025 is when this project's expected to be done, I suppose. What is that impact gonna look like? And to see I always emphasize this, the broader reaches of that impact into East San Jose, to think regional about this, what is that gonna do? And to think about the people of color, the lower income communities are gonna be affected by this. And to re-echo what someone stated about the public land, I think that has to be really looked into. Imagine what the public land could be used for. I think there's legislation that people should look out for that could affect public land sales, and also to look at different uses and really be innovative and really intentional around other uses, including affordable housing, public land trust, different things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Next is Blair, followed by Larry Ames.
Hi. I wanted to reiterate a lot of what was just spoken. I think issues of the east side of San Jose need to be talked more about here at this place. I hope the people at Google, they've talked twice now about an overall picture. I hope they start talking about their their actual campus structure a bit more today, and I hope we learn to focus on those terms. I was really impressed by the ideas of public use and public land, public use for public land, something like that. I was really impressed by that idea, and the school superintendent, he spoke something that has not been spoken here before, and it was nice for me. It made things very clear about how to work, or how to think about this process. And Kristen spoke about public land issues. I think that's important. I hope we can look into that more. There's land trust, public land trust issues that can help. I mean, it seems like to have the public as a conservator itself of the land, to be an ownership of the land itself is a really possible option. And for Google to possibly learn to just step back from everything. And I don't know if that's okay with them, but to be just kind of that old, wise grandfather figure kind of thing and let the city of San Jose own the land and that kind of arrangement. I hope you can look into that. And I guess about where this land originally, who was here first, and I hope we are returning to those principles and that way of thinking. And Google, in all of its grand schemes, you know, really considers that going back to Earth and practicing actual things of the Earth will be important in the future of technology. Thank you.
Larry Ames, followed by Susan Price, our last speaker.
So I wanted to echo Harvey and just say, wow, I think you heard us, you're hearing us, and we're glad that you're dreaming big. Regarding housing, you're going to be building a lot of stuff there by the by the Diridon, and it's not all Google offices. There'll be a lot of housing that'll be built too. By the way, who's going to be building that? I'm not quite sure. But anyhow, the area now is mostly warehouses and vacant lots. There's not that many residents there. You'll be building a lot more houses than are being displaced. It needs to be a mix, though, of from very affordable studio apartments up to luxury penthouses. And you need to have, you'll be building more affordable housing now than they are being displaced, so you need to do that. You do need to work on the phasing so that the new affordable housing is available before the residents are displaced. You want to have a mix of community. You want to have rich and poor, young and old. You want to have businesses, commercial and residential, day jobs and nightlife. And I just want to echo Kathy's excitement. I think this is going to be wonderful, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Price, and I'm a volunteer with PACT. I want to thank the gentleman, I don't think he's still here, from San Jose Unified School District who introduced the concept of never selling public land. I think we really need to be thinking about that in the school district in which my neighborhood serves my neighborhood. It's the Campbell Union Elementary School District. They did not sell property that was once a school, instead leased it to Home Depot. And Home Depot now pays them rent plus a cut of their profits. And I thought this is a very wise thing to do because I don't think we should ever lose control of public property. Maybe we can figure some legal things out, land trusts, whatever, but I think we need to be thinking beyond what we've done before. And I also the impacts of Google coming here will not just be that little the downtown area. It's going to affect Stockton, Modesto, Sacramento, people in the valley. They're already being displaced because people from the Bay Area who can't afford to live here are now moving out further, but they can afford to pay more, so they're displacing the people who originally lived in Stockton, Modesto, et cetera. So we're talking about something much bigger than just making San Jose downtown a playground. I am personally being impacted because my neighbors, a lot of them who rent, and maybe they don't make big incomes, a lot of them speak Spanish, are going to be affected. And I'm worried about what's going to happen to them. I'm worried what's going to happen to my son. Where is he going to live? Where are our kids going to live? We have to do something to control costs of housing. And it's going to have to be a whole new way of thinking because up to now what we've done hasn't worked. And lastly, I want to say, I think when you're talking about parks, it's not, we also mean parks in areas which are lower income, not just making parks more accessible to people in downtown. Thank you.
Okay, Robert Geary.
Not as tall as she was, or is. Anyway, okay, so my name is Robert Aguirre, and those that know me, I represent the houseless community. There are 4,300 houseless people living outdoors on any given night. And a a lot of these people are living in the downtown area, and particularly in this particular area that Google is putting in there. And I understand they also have bought up the area of land where Montgomery Street Inn and Julian Street Inn are. So there's a lot of people that are living in those temporary housing units that are being displaced. I'm sure they're going to find some place for them somewhere, because that's what typically happens, is somebody's going to do something, but there's no real plan as to what's going to happen with all the people that are being displaced. And speaking to, as far as the property, there's an Assembly Bill 2065. It's in committee right now on local government, and it's talking about revising and expanding provisions in the surplus land, specifically surplus lands that are owned by local agencies, to include sewer, water utility, local government, regional park district, joint powers authority, successor agency to a former redevelopment agency, housing authority, and other political subdivisions of the state, and instrumentally thereof empowered to acquire and hold real property, therefore expanding the entities required to comply with State Surplus Land Act. So what this act is, anybody can look it up, it's on the internet, is saying that basically the properties do not have to be sold to a private individual, but they should be offered first to anybody that wants to build affordable housing. My question is, what is affordable? Because everybody can afford something if you can afford it. But what I'm talking about are the people that cannot afford, and those are the people that are in extremely low income. An inclusionary clause that the city of San Jose has does not include very low and extremely low income. Nothing is really being done except for building these kind of fancy looking projects where they're shoving everybody into. So inclusionary does not include the people that I care about most. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. That concludes the public comment. So I have some housekeeping slides, but because the TED Talks are next, there's like 200 slides I'd have to sort through to get through that. And quite honestly, I just, given the tenure of the conversation, I think we will follow up with an email on that. And during public comment, I was trying to think how to close this out. So a lot happened tonight, quite frankly. And I facilitate a lot of community meetings and haven't dealt with that before. And, I was trying to, say, do I come back and thank you guys for coming back and thank the public? But really, I was proud of the way you guys dealt with that and how we came back. We talked a lot in the first meeting, our orientation, kind of possibly assuming that may happen, about how we were going to come back as a group and work together. And that's really important. We all deal with, fears, anxiety, and, there's a lot of emotion around this because it's change and fear, and we all deal with that differently. But I liked how you guys came back into the room, challenged Google on several fronts, gave them compliments on several fronts, the stuff that you guys wanted addressed. The presentation's a work in progress. Some of your TED Talks next week are going to be a work in progress. Nothing is perfect yet. Quite frankly, this process isn't going to be perfect because we're still kind of designing it as we go to try and be nimble. I can guarantee the solutions that you guys come up with your solution groups aren't going to be perfect. Things change. As a group, we're probably not going to be perfect, but if we can come back like we did tonight, have conversation, still push one another to think differently, and really rely on ourselves to seek to understand and listen, we may not be perfect, but we will get somewhere. So I'm going to leave us on that tonight. We will follow up with all the different housekeeping and details, but thank you for coming back in the room and challenging one another and listening to one another.